Welcome, everyone, to the Fright Corner podcast. I'm your host, John, and with me, as always, is my good friend, Jeff.
Hello.
And this week, guys, we are going to discuss two movies here. The first being The House is October Built from 2014, and then our second movie will be Paranormal Activity 2 from 2010. And in between that, Jeff has a indie horror game that he'd like to put up for review, too. So I guess we'll start with jumping into The House is October Built from 2014, which has a 5.1 out of 10 rating on IMDb, which isn't too bad. I think it's a little underrated for what it should be, but my opinion. So, overall, what'd you think of the movie, Jeff?
I thought it was all right for what it was. It was really an interesting concept. I'd never seen a movie try and go with this sort of theme before. Basically, it was a group of people who took an RV and traveled around the country trying to find the scariest haunted houses in the world. And when we say haunted houses, we mean like stage haunted houses, like with acting and stuff like that. Like you would go to your local city every year in Halloween and go through one of those. So not like ghosts or anything, but like actual I don't know what you would call it, but acted out haunted houses. And so they go around the country visiting the most scary ones that they can find. And eventually it kind of ties into everyone's worst fear where, there might actually be some sort of crime being committed here by actual evil people masquerading under the haunted house umbrella, basically kind of infiltrating and hiding out and doing these things. Really, it's the perfect cover. But for the movie itself, I thought the movie was all right. I wasn't super impressed with it. I felt like they could have done a lot more. I wasn't very happy with the ending. It felt very anticlimactic. There wasn't really a payoff, I felt like. But, I just have some little minor gripes with the film. Overall, it was a really good idea, and I liked the camera style. Like, it was kind of like almost an interview type process. Again, we seem to have this kind of theme here of handheld type movies for the last few weeks, and this really fits in with that, and it makes you feel like you're going through the haunted house along with the characters. So it's kind of an interesting version to do.
Yeah, it really is. And as with the movie, I thought the movie was pretty good too. I like the concept and I like the idea. And of course the haunts they went to weren't that bad either. I especially liked that. I think it was the second one they went to that was the zombie haunt where they rode through on the on the trailer, and they were shooting zombies as they went by with paintball guns with actors and dummies and stuff. I thought that was pretty cool. Neat idea, I thought.
Do you know if these are all real places or were they just made up for the film?
No, these are real places. I watched an interview with them, and these are real places that they talk to, and they let them come in and film and do it. So, and they are down in Texas, in the Dallas area. These are haunts that are located down there, as far as I understood them.
And in between each haunted house that they visit, they actually feature interviews with real-life actors who are in each of these haunted houses. And John, you said those were actual people who worked there, and they weren't just actors for the film.
No, they were actual people, and they said that it was great because when they approached them with the idea and wanted to talk to them, they were very opening and welcoming to talk about it. And, they said one interview where the guy talks about, they don't do background checks for the people that work there, and he said, yeah, that's real, but we really should look into doing that probably. I mean, that's
yeah.
That's honest that, they don't have no background checks. There's no regulations on them by any means. And I guess I like the movie, the idea that they keep looking for that elusive blue skeleton. It's supposed to be one of them pop-up haunts, the most extreme that you can take. And in the interview, they said there are ones out there. They're kind of like that blue skeleton thing, where they are extreme haunts that just pop up and they'll, they put you through hell, I guess, doing it. But they said themselves they've never been to one. They've just heard about them, and they've kind of researched them, and they've seen interviews and stuff with people that have experienced them. They said they're really extreme, and they just pop up all over the place. So I thought that was kind of neat that they incorporated something real into it, as well, along with the haunts and stuff. Something real there. It taps into that innermost fear of what could happen.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're taking it to the next level of actually allowing yourself to be touched and be, almost part of the show in a way. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, the way that some people would actually like to have that. And one of my things with these characters in the movie, there's only one girl in the cast in the main group who's traveling around, and it was a bit generic in the fact that she was the one who was like, "Oh, guys, I don't know if this is a great idea to be doing this. Maybe we shouldn't mess with these people." And then the guys were like typical, like, testosterone filled, like, these things don't scare me that much and we're going to do it anyway, and that kind of thing. But then again, that's kind of realistic, because I feel like a lot of guys in that situation might play it that way. They might be like, "Oh, I'm man, hurt me," and there's a few creepy scenes where there's like people outside of their RV while they're parked, and they just kind of go outside and check it out. Or it's interesting, and it's hard to say how you would react in that situation, since obviously you've never been in that situation. But the way the characters handled it seemed maybe a little bit off or a little bit generic. I don't know. It's tough. I don't know what you thought, John.
Well, it was pretty generic, I thought, the way they were acting it out. But, when it came down to it, whenever, they get toward the climax of the movie, and they're sitting there and they've already abducted one of their friends for this haunt, and they're sitting there listening to him talk like, "It's not real, is it?" I said, "Well, you got 60 seconds or we're going to kill him." It's like, "No, this ain't real. This is, no, we're not going to screw with these guys. Come on, just give him back and let's just go." But, in that situation, they were like, "Yeah, we got to do it because it's not real. It's okay." And,
and isn't there one scene toward the end, they just leave their friend? Like, they just leave him and they're like, "Oh, we're going to go to the next haunted house now, even though he's not here."
Well, that was kind of the deal. See, they would it seems like that he had met up with that blue skeleton character or something, and he was taken, and then after that they went back to the RV and they're asking where he was, and they couldn't find him, and then they get the message that, go to this location now. And
so basically they thought that it was going to be the extreme haunt that just randomly popped up, that they'd happened to
they thought they finally found it. They thought they'd got this down. They were ready to go through it, and it seems like, to me, when it got to that point, it seems like they were really questioning, like, "Well, this isn't real, right?" They started really questioning themselves, like, "What's going to happen? What are we going to do?"
Actually, there's one point in the movie that was kind of odd and almost felt out of place. Going back to where they were in the RV and there were people outside, and at one point they all come to the front of the RV and they turn on the headlights, and there's this huge crowd of these clowns, and the clown makeup was great for this film. I do compliment them on that. But there was this huge crowd right in front of the RV, and then all of a sudden all the power for the RV just shuts off, and the lights go dark and everything. And not even like 5 seconds goes by probably when it comes back on, and all the clowns are gone. And that almost felt like a supernatural aspect to it.
Well, I kind of thought that too.
It was really weird, and I don't know if that actually fit in, because like they're going for realism, it seems like, and this was almost a paranormal type thing. So I'm not sure. But then again, the way that the people were acting, the clown people were acting, it could have been supernatural, I guess. I don't know.
Maybe, possibly. It did seem to have that vibe, especially, when that one from the first haunt they went to, that gal with the porcelain doll face, and then shows up in the next place, out of nowhere. She just shows up, and it seems like that should have been something kind of odd.
Yeah, but somehow she knew where they were going.
Yeah, and it seems like it wasn't addressed again. Then, of course, in the zombie one, he went to go take a leak there on the side. He ran into that bunny with the axe. The guy dressed up like the rabbit with the axe scared him. He shows up in the alleyway, as well as the porcelain doll gal. And I'm trying to think
that's
of
toward
who
the
else.
end of the movie.
Like the clown,
the clown was there as well. But this is the scene where they like grab the guy or whatever.
Yeah, they grab him.
The random people they had met at each haunt show up all together at the very end. So it's like, are all of these haunted houses actually having secret evil people infiltrating them, or are they working together somehow, or what? And you got to wonder how that affects the business for the actual places, since they do exist. Do they actually have people worry about whether or not there's the clown bunny with the axe coming after them? Yeah,
the quote-unquote most extreme, deadly, be killed haunt, but I don't know. I personally, I enjoy haunted houses usually, but anymore I can't hardly do them physically. I've got problems that I can't A lot of times they call you to crawl around stuff. I got bad knees and my legs are screwed up. I can't do that kind of stuff anymore. But in general, I love watching stuff like this because I think it's pretty neat seeing these people go through them. But
Yeah, if you can't experience it yourself, it is neat to see other people do it. And I myself am not a huge fan of going through the haunted houses like that, just because like I feel like I should be fighting back and not just like being scared. But it's interesting to see these other people do it because that way I get to experience it, even though in normal real life I wouldn't. So maybe if you want to see something like that, I definitely would recommend to watch this film because you'll get that experience.
oh yeah, you sure will. And I mean, I really enjoyed that for it. I mean, I enjoyed seeing them go through these. But although I do think the hayride through the zombie field, shooting them with paintballs, would be one I could do, and that would be a blast. I'd love to do something like that, though.
Oh yeah, agreed.
I mean, that was definitely enjoyable. Even them, they just loved it. They ate it up and thought that was the greatest thing ever. And I mean, I think those were genuine reactions too to the haunt that they went to for that.
Yeah, I feel bad for those people who were the zombie actors, though. I mean, they were getting shot with paintballs, and that had to have not been very pleasant,
No,
especially if you're getting shot all night.
Yeah, I mean, I understand you can put padding on and stuff, but padding can only do so much after some time. It hurts after a while. Now, speaking of which, on these actors and stuff they were talking about, they said that while they were coming up with the idea, they said they picked the Dallas area, not anywhere specific, but they do call it the Mecca of haunted houses, and I guess that is true. I guess if you look up, you can find that, when they start here in Dallas and end up in Louisiana. But I guess Dallas and around that surrounding area is just huge for haunted houses that are open all year round. I mean, I thought that was pretty neat to hear that, they had some truth in where they were starting at.
Yeah, I always wonder how those haunted houses that are only, for a couple weeks, how they, can even keep doing that every year, because you'd have to find almost new actors, it seems like, every single year. So a year-round deal would be amazing for people who make a career out of that.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. And I think that part of the upkeep is you got to keep changing things, because if you're going to be open all year round, you got to come up with some new stuff every couple of months, because after a while, people go through it are like, well, I know what's going to happen. This ain't very scary. I know what's around this corner. I know what's around that corner. And I think that's where they got to change stuff up as they go. So it'd be a constant mental battle with yourself. Okay, I got to figure out what's going to scare people next. What do we do the next time they come through? Because we don't want it to be the same each time.
They'd probably take whatever movies are popular at the time, whatever horror movies are popular at the time, and kind of throw that in there a little element of that type of horror. Well, because as we all know, being horror fans, there are many, many types of horror.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, they do that out there at that Universal Nights of Horror out in Universal Studios out in California. They do that Universal Nights of Horror in October. I think it's September, October, and part of November. But they pick these movies and they make areas just surrounded by these movies, such as they've done Halloween. They've done some Rob Zombie movies. They've done The Walking Dead has had an exhibit there, and just whatever they can find. And they seem to do that every year. Of course, that's the more money one. I mean, you got to pay to go through there, and it's pretty elaborate too. So there is that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Okay, before we go on here, I think that I want to talk about this rating. This 5.1, and of course it's only out of about 4,500 people. I feel that that's kind of low for this type of movie. Of course, it wasn't seen by very many people, obviously. Only 4,500 reviewed it, and whether or not it made much money, I don't think it had a huge release by any means. Which is unfortunate, because I think that if they would have pushed this, I think it could have been it could be like a cult. I guess we consider it like a cult classic now. That, if you're a fan of the genre, you're probably going to watch it.
Yeah, I could see that happening.
I could see a bigger cult following for this movie than before. But I think overall, I enjoyed it. There are some problems with it here and there. I mean, like we were talking about, the supernatural aspect, I don't know if that fits in quite well for the realism they were going for. So for this one, I'd probably give it, actually, out of 5, I'd probably give it 3.5. Because I think it's one that I'd probably like to watch once maybe every other year. I think I would enjoy revisiting this one.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, on the revisit. I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 5, just because I really did not care for the ending. And again, I know we're doing a spoiler style review, so being buried alive at the very end.
Yeah, and that was kind of anticlimactic because they kind of didn't really explain what happened, but on the other hand, like, okay, was it so extreme that they buried him and they left him there, and then did they unbury him and let him out? Just say, you want to be scared, we'll scare you, or is it the idea that they are stuck down there and they know they're going to die? I mean, it's that insecure feeling that you can't get out of this. It's done.
Yeah, so I guess they did kind of leave it open, to interpretation, make up your own ending, that kind of.
Yeah, is this such an extreme haunt that they went that far to then they'll unbury you after 5 minutes or something like that?
Right before you suffocate to death.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, the acting was good. The premise was fantastic. I like the idea. Some points taken away for the inconsistency on the realism versus supernatural, and maybe just the ending. So, yeah, solid 3 out of 5.
Okay. But while we're talking about haunts here, I do want to bring up there are extreme haunts that people can do here in the U.S., and they're all over the world. And I know I've looked up and I've talked to look at 2 of them. And I want to talk about the first one it is called Terror Behind the Walls. It's in Pennsylvania. It's an 11-acre abandoned prison. It's Eastern State Penitentiary. And supposedly it is haunted. But during this, you're asked whenever you sign this waiver, do you want to be touched or not touched? Well, no touching. They'll just scare you as hard as they can going through this 11-acre abandoned prison that's supposedly haunted. Now, if you go ahead and sign the waiver that you want to be touched, they can do a little bit to you. They can grab you. They can hold you back from the group, possibly shove you through secret passageways. Let's see. And then I guess at some points they can incorporate you into the show that they're doing there to make it more realistic for everybody else too. So, I mean, you're taking, that waiver and you're deciding what you want to do here and there. And I believe you have to be at least 18 to do this one before you're even allowed to go in. I'm not sure if it's something that I would want to do, but I think the people that want to do it, I sometimes think they want to see how far can they really get scared. It's like, what would be your reaction to that? Now,
what would be? Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
The other one, you have to be 21 or older to even enter this thing. And there is a huge waiting list, and it's called McCamey Manors. It's probably the most notorious one. A lot of people hate on it, say it's legal torture, but I don't believe that at all. Because, first, you have to be 21 even to enter this thing. You have to go under a physical and psychological evaluation before you can even do this haunt. And, I mean, the actors can touch you. They will, they've been known to cut hair. I mean, it's pretty extreme. You'll eat some foul stuff. It's not going to kill you, but it's stuff that, here in America we normally wouldn't eat, but it's common for other places, and it's pretty putrid. They will tie you up. They push you to the limits extremely hard. It's an extreme haunt. You can see some of the videos on YouTube. Yeah, I feel like the people that do that, they want to see how far they can be pushed. And I mean, there's a huge waiting list, so there's lots of people that want to do it, which is great because that keeps people coming back to it, to see how far they can push their bodies. It's like, how mentally or physically could I push myself in this situation?
They take very small groups at a time, right? Just a small handful of people.
Yeah, I usually think it's like groups of 2 or 3, maybe. I mean, they don't like to have very many people in there at a time. And it's always filmed. They film everything that happens. And, I mean, they are concerned about the people's well-being, too. If something real does happen, and it is something that does hurt them, I mean, you can see on the videos, they just stop. It's like, okay, we got to take care of this first. Everybody stop. Let's figure out what's going on. Make sure they're okay. So I mean, it is a concern. They do have to watch out for people, but they film everything, and they constantly have told them that they don't want to do this haunt. You do not want to do this. You're told repeatedly, even before you sign the waiver, you're at the waiver thing, they tell them they don't want to do this, don't sign it, just don't do it. And some people go ahead and do it, and like I said, the videos are kind of neat to watch to see how far these people will go, see how far they're going for that record. You know, they want to last for 3 hours, 4 hours, or go through the whole 8 hours, or 6 hours, or however long it takes. I think it's pretty neat, and the guy that runs it, I mean, he's a very approachable guy. I mean, he's, you know, even in the haunts, he's very approachable. You know, he's always making sure that people are okay. They're, you know, just kind of, they keep wanting to push him a little bit harder. You know, like, how far can you really go, or do you want to stop now? Are you done, or do you want to keep going? So I don't know, Jeff, is that something that you would be willing to do?
I personally would not do that. But I know a lot of people would, and I think they want that experience of being kidnapped and tortured and stuff like that without actually having their life at risk. There are a lot of fetishes out there, and that is probably one of them.
It is, and it's a very extreme one. I mean, like I said, the people that do it, I mean, more power to them. I mean, it's neat seeing what the human body can endure and how far they can be pushed before it's, you know, before they're like, okay, I'm done. This is it. No more for me. I can't do it. But
yeah, and there was that one girl. I mean, I'm surprised. You could probably approach a television network with their YouTube channel, and I could see a reality show coming out of this.
Oh yeah, very easily. You know, and obviously they don't want to show everything because they can't give everything away. You know, I mean, you know, that's pretty obvious. But what they do show, and what you can see in these YouTube videos, is like, wow, these people are, you know, they're dedicated to doing this, and they get in there and they go to do it. And wow, I mean, you know, and it's not just males, but females go in there willingly too. There's some of the best ones have been the females that went through there. They have been very upfront about it, and they've actually done better than some of the guys have. So, but yeah, I just wanted to give that out. But you can check out that on their website. Check out McCamey Manor, and then you can check out that 11 acres of the abandoned prison there, that Terror Behind the Walls. Check it out too, and you know, there might be some people interested in trying it, so go for it. And next, I believe we will go into, Jeff, you got a game you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about doing this for each episode. We're going to have a short intermission between the movie reviews, and we're actually going to discuss independent games, independent horror games. And I like to do a lot of these types of games that are just kind of hidden gems, you know, that most people could run on their computers, and a lot of them you can download for free. So there's a lot like that. But for this very first one, I'm actually going to kind of break the mold here, break my own rules. And I'm going to talk about a game that was released on PlayStation 4, actually, for a very short time, and it was called PT. And it was actually a playable teaser is what it stood for, but it was literally a playable teaser. And it was put out, it just kind of appeared on the PlayStation Network, and nobody really knew what it was or where it came from. But it turns out it was actually created by Hideo Kojima, who, as most people know, is the creator of Metal Gear Solid. And he was actually working with one of his good friends, Guillermo del Toro, who most of you horror fans probably know. And it was actually going to be the teaser for the new Silent Hills game. And actually, another friend of both of theirs is Norman Reedus from The Walking Dead. Most of you know him as Daryl. And he was going to be the main character for this game. And they created the character model for him and everything. It looked fantastic. Like, the graphics were amazing. So this short little teaser actually has you waking up off the floor in this empty room. And the graphics were so good. It was like movie quality. And then, so basically you get up and you walk down this hallway, and it's this creepy hallway. The clock, there's like a little clock on the right-hand side that says 11:59, right before midnight, basically. And you just keep walking down this hall over and over, and there's like a different experience every time. And there's like little puzzles you can solve by looking at certain objects in the room around you. And just the ambiance of this entire game was so creepy. I mean, it was the scariest thing I've ever played in my life. And, well, I should say scariest non-full game I've ever played. The graphics were amazing. I can't say enough good things about it. And sadly, it was canceled. The entire project was canceled when Kojima actually split off and left Konami, and so the whole project was scrapped. But basically, it was going to be amazing. Like, there were so many like jump scares. It was a paranormal thriller type thing where like there's this ghost lady standing in the hallway in front of you, and like if you look back at the wrong time, then she'll grab you, and there's like a doorway with this. I mean, I can't even describe all of it because it's so graphic, but there was like, I mean, basically there was like this fetus in the sink, and it would actually cry, and like there was just blood and gore everywhere, and it sounds really. I was almost going to say it sounds nasty, but it's not. But it is kind of nasty, but it's nasty for good effect, like in the horror. And Kojima is known for being a storyteller and a fantastic one at that. And this game was the embodiment of that. And so it's not on the PlayStation Store anymore. It was taken down. A lot of fans kind of tried to get it put back up just because it was so good. And it's not happened as of yet. I'm sure there are other places you can find it, and you can also find YouTube videos of this game. I definitely recommend watching it. And I mean, I really wish this had been made, but I think Hideo Kojima is actually working on another project now. I don't think he's with Del Toro this time, but he is with Norman Reedus. And this game is going to be called Death Stranding, and it's going to come out either next year or 2018. I'm not sure exactly, but that's probably the closest that we're going to get to PT or Silent Hills in the near future. So next week, I'm actually going to be talking about a game called Layers of Fear, and it came out for PC. It's not too expensive. I think it's $30, something like that, but it might be cheaper than that actually. But it's probably the scariest game that I've ever played, like full-on game. So it's quite a ride, and next week I'll tell you all about that. So John, I'll let you shift us into the next movie review.
Okay, well, we are going to continue our franchise reviews, and this one will be Paranormal Activity 2 from 2010. It has a rating of 5.7 out of 10 on IMDb out of about 82,000 people have reviewed it. Of course, it's the sequel to the hit Paranormal Activity, only this is kind of taking place before the first movie. And maybe just a little bit during it toward the end. It's kind of happening during the first movie as well. It can be confusing, of course, if you're not paying attention to the markers that come up that tell you, when this takes place in the timeline. Overall, I still enjoyed this one. I thought it was pretty good. I like the idea of the security cameras set up, so you got a little bit more of the still camera mixed with the handhelds too. Overall, I think it's a pretty good movie. I like the fact that, of course, in this one we're talking about, from our first movie, being the sister. It's her, I believe it's her younger sister, is who this is. And it's their family going through a lot of paranormal problems. They think they've had a break-in. Nothing's missing except for a few tapes. But that's it. And so, obviously it wasn't a break-in. It was actually this demon that had been following the family, waiting for a male child, which unravels as the story goes on, especially in the movie. I mean, they definitely really develop a little bit more of the feel of it, of what has happened in the past. But yeah, overall, I mean, it has some good suspenseful stuff in it. You get a few of your jump scares. And I mean, you just kind of, you almost grow to care about the family a little bit more in this one than they did in the first movie, I think. I think they developed them to where you actually kind of care about these characters a little bit more.
Yeah, I totally agree. The characters are very likable. And I also agree about the security cameras. I know the budget was a bit bigger for this film, actually. I think it was a $3 million budget, and subsequently ended up making over $41 million in its theatrical run, I believe. So definitely a big success in that aspect. But the characters were likable. Security cameras were good. The acting was good. I like that they did bring back Mika and Katie for this film as well. They had... I guess you could call them cameos, but yeah, you're right. It is a prequel and then also sort of a sequel because the final moments of this film actually take place after the events of the first movie. So it's definitely kind of an interesting way that they did this, and I really enjoyed it. Some people say it's actually a little bit scarier than the first one. I don't know if I agree with that completely, but it definitely is very close in the scare factor. Some people say that it doesn't really offer anything new, but then again, we're dealing with the same entity, in this storyline. So it's only going to have a few different variations, obviously, if you're going to keep with the same narrative that you had in the first movie. So an interesting fun fact actually is that for the ending of this film, most people have seen this film, right? If you're listening to this, I hope. So basically, in the final moments of the film, Katie actually shows up after she had finished at her house. She comes to this house that this movie focuses on. She actually kills the dad and goes on her way to claim the baby and all that stuff or whatever. And the thing is, he shot two different endings for this film. The first one was a very gory ending to the film. It was like blood and guts everywhere, and they actually cut that one out because they said that it didn't really fit the larger narrative that they were going to tell with this series. And so they actually did go with the cleaner, murder style, I guess. So kind of an interesting way that they were looking ahead, as well as thinking about this film in particular.
Yeah, I mean, they truly did. I mean, I'm glad they didn't go with the gory ending because I don't think you need the gore for this type of movie. And I think this is also one of those ones, while I was rewatching it, I really think headphones on, focus on the screen, lights out, and just listen to every little thing in that movie. And you'll, like, wow, shit. You're hearing stuff that you didn't think you would hear.
The production values are a lot higher in this one, and obviously they had a lot more to work with, a lot bigger budget because of the success of the first one.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. You can see that they had a lot better budget. And of course, the people in this one, by this time we've known that the first one obviously wasn't real. And of course, the second one, they got some actors that have actually went on to play in other stuff. So, I mean, these actors and actresses have moved on to do other things. Like the daughter, she's actually one of the main characters on the sitcom on channel, I think it's ABC, and it's called Last Man Standing with Tim Allen. She plays the middle daughter of all of his three daughters, and so she's she's obviously come out of that shell from being in that movie into doing some sitcoms and stuff. So, and of course, she shows up in one of the other movies later too. I think it's in 4. She shows back up. So, a little bit of continuation there, but it's kind of nice to see some of these have moved from this. They didn't have to rely on this series for their career.
Yeah, it's interesting. And also, I can't remember, isn't this the first film where they actually introduced the demon as being named Toby, or at least the children calling it Toby?
No, I believe that's the third one. That's the third one. Okay. If we go even farther back into the past, when they were daughters, when they were little girls, right. When they were they were young, that was Toby. As a friend.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see the way that the demon interacts with the children in this one and the next one, because there is the baby in this film is the one that it's after, right?
Yes, it's after the baby. It's after the male child. But really, I didn't mind it too much. It's still pretty good. I mean, I don't know if it's quite as scary as the first one, but there were some things in there that's like, holy crap, no way. There was
I mean, you're still going to get, like I said earlier, you still get the same stuff, like the door opening by itself, and the sound of footsteps with no one seemingly there and all that stuff. So it is kind of the same stuff, but if you do it right, I mean, it can be seen a lot differently.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I thought having the dog thrown in there was a good aspect, because obviously there's the deal in the paranormal area that animals are more sensitive to that kind of stuff than humans are. So I really thought that was a good idea, incorporating the dog. He's barking at the basement door. He's barking in this corner. Something's not right.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that, especially, like, I couldn't help but think the entire movie of how they were getting the dog to do all this and react a certain way, but they definitely pulled it off, and every time the dog would think that something was there, like, it grabbed your attention. You were really interested.
Yeah, like a lot of times whenever he was in the baby's room, he'd be sleeping in the baby's room. He'd be barking in the bathroom. He'd be barking out in the hallway, and of course that's at the time you could hear. If you got your headphones on, you can hear that rumbling, like something's going on.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought that was just a nice little detail to add into the movie. Throw the animal in there, so it's like, hey, the animal sees it. And obviously the the daughter's seeing this stuff and trying to present it to her father, but her father just sees it and says, "Well, yeah, Wynn shut the door. What's the big deal?"
Yeah, yeah, the always stereotypical, skeptical parents and all that.
It's like it's right in front of him, but no, that's just the wind. That's just a mistake, and blah blah blah, whatever else they want to do. But
Yeah, and I like that they kept that rumbling noise to denote when the creature, demon, or whatever it is actually there, because that helps you to know when to anticipate something, and it helps, like, especially if nothing even happens. At least you were in suspense for that amount of time whenever that rumbling was actually happening. So that's literally like adding emotional effect by doing nothing. I mean, it's less is more.
oh yeah, absolutely, and that's a big part of it. Less is more. And I mean, I will stand by that for every horror movie I watch. Sometimes less is more. I think your imagination can do more for you than they can if they show it to you. I mean, seeing somebody cut somebody's head off is not. I don't think it can be as graphic as what you would imagine if it was off screen and you heard something. I think that could be worse than seeing it. So
Yeah, and sometimes like movies like this, when you don't see things, I remember when I watched the first Paranormal Activity, and they would always sit up in bed and they would listen so hard to see if they could hear anything. That transferred to me in real life. Like when I went to bed, the first like 3 nights after I watched that movie, like I was listening for every little sound in my bedroom. And the same thing with this movie. I mean, it just reminds you of that fear. It grabs you again, and it puts you back in that mode of like, wait, maybe there is something around me right now.
oh yeah, definitely, and I think that's a good plot point of the movie is to immerse you into it, to pull you into, well, maybe there's something I don't know about going on while I'm sleeping. Maybe I should be more alert.
Yeah.
I mean, they get you looking over your shoulder, I guess you could say, and that's worth every penny right there.
Yeah. So overall, I really enjoyed the film. I still enjoy the film, even this latest time that I've watched. I think that was maybe the third time I've seen it. So it still has that replayability for me, or rewatchability. But yeah, it's really enjoyable. I give it a solid 4 out of 5. I don't know about you, John.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think a 4 out of 5 is good for this. I mean, this was really good. Definitely a good sequel to bring it up to. Maybe not quite as good as the first one, but you get a little bit of the backstory, you get the current story, and you get a little bit of what happens after the first one. So overall, I would give it. I'm with you. 4 out of 5 is good for this one. Now, I guess we will talk about the next 2 weeks. And what do we have coming up, Jeff?
Yeah, since this next episode is going to be my choice for the film, I chose one that I actually had seen in theaters back when I lived in Colorado Springs, and it is The Fourth Kind. And John, I'm huge into ufology and studying everything to do with aliens and that sort of thing. So this movie really excited me. I went to see it in theaters, and I remember when I drove home, I actually got lost a little bit because I was still new to Colorado Springs, and I drove too far south or whatever, and I missed my turn. And I was kind of just on the edge of the city, and it was just dark enough to where I could like look up into the sky, and I could like see the lights of the stars and things moving around. And I remember that fear that I had just from watching The Fourth Kind and all these alien abduction stories and things like this. And it is based in realism, not the stories like exactly, but this sort of thing does happen. And I'm well aware of that because I've studied ufology for years and years. And not all these people are making this up. You could say that a few might be, but I'm getting off track here. But the scare factor of this movie was very high for me personally because I am so invested in it. And I hope that if you haven't seen this movie before, you should go watch it and prepare for the next episode, because maybe we can kind of go over some things and talk about what might have been real versus what could be fantasy or creative license. So, and it also stars Mila Jovovich, who I know a lot of people probably enjoy a lot of her acting, especially with the Resident Evil movies and things like that. So yeah, we're going to do The Fourth Kind, and then also the second film, but third film technically, Paranormal Activity 3. So look forward to that.
Yeah, I definitely am too. I'm looking forward to watching these. I've seen The Fourth Kind. I think I've seen it once. I didn't get to see it in theaters. I think it was something I watched afterwards, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty good. I'm curious to see if it holds up good too. And of course, Paranormal Activity 3, we'll see how the series goes. Does it start going downhill, or is it still holding up for a little bit longer?
That's right. And if you, in the audience, if you haven't watched this, I definitely invite you to, rewatch it and try to at least reignite that magic that the first two movies had.
Absolutely, and just check it out. I mean, I'm curious to see how this one works out for me. So, like I said, it's been a while since I've watched it, so I think that may help actually, instead of being so near. So I don't have anything else, Jeff. Do you have anything for anybody out there?
Nope, that's about it. Feel free to visit thefrightcorner.tk to find all of our podcast episodes. Also, that connects you with the jeffjarman.tk website, which has all of our YouTube videos and other podcasts and all that stuff all in one place. So feel free to check that out. I'm at jeffjarman55 on Twitter. John, you are at jguitarrock on Twitter. And also you can find The Fright Corner on Twitter, right?
Yes, at The Fright Corner is the Twitter handle, and I'm pretty active on there usually. I'm usually throwing shout-outs and all kinds of stuff there. And speaking of shout-outs, I do want to give a podcast a shout-out that I find very entertaining, and it's called The Horrified Podcast. I recommend checking these guys out. There's 3 guys that are in Chicago, and they do a really bang-up job. I enjoy listening to them. Their shows are about an hour, maybe a little bit over an hour, but they got some good stuff on there. It's definitely, they're entertaining, very, very entertaining to listen to, and I would recommend it to anybody to check them out. It's worth your time. And I guess if I don't have anything else, you don't have anything else. So I guess till next time, keep horror alive and make sure and watch something that scares you. We'll see you next time right here in the Fright Corner.